always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany a spectacular summer fireworks display of exploding colors. And it may not be what you think. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. We love our fireworks too, especially when the entire country is setting them off on a national holiday. As the sun sets in the west, it seems to be followed by a wave of exploding color from sea to sea. This hour, some man-made fireworks, as well as some of the best that nature has to offer, with Lovers and Other Strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. Elton John's Candle in the Wind, and Paul McCartney with A Little Luck. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. As the clock struck midnight in every time zone around the world, in the first few moments of New Year's Day 2000, the new millennium and the new century were welcomed with grand pyrotechnic displays, each seemingly more spectacular than the last. Fortunately, we don't have to wait until the start of the next millennium, even the start of the next century, to be entertained by the dazzling lights in the sky. There are a few times during the course of the year when we get a chance to see some spectacular displays. On Victoria Day and Canada Day, there are usually a few locations where professional displays are set off for the public's enjoyment. And for those who know the laws concerning private displays, some people will set them off on their own property, keeping safety in mind. And then there are, of course, the roving gangs who set them off indiscriminately. We had a few of those in our own neighborhood. In the past, they go down to a ravine that skirts our community and set them off, regardless of the danger of fire or damage to private property. But in the right hands, under the right conditions, you've got a spectacular display overhead, lit against the backdrop of a dark nighttime sky. For that brief moment, they're brighter and more colorful than the stars overhead. But the man-made display lasts but a few brief moments. The stars continue to dazzle us long after the smoke is cleared and the spectators have packed up their lawn chairs and gone home. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Faith Hill and There You'll Be, a song from a film with a much different set of fireworks. The horror of war as the backdrop to the film Pearl Harbor, and Celine Dion from Titanic, and My Heart Will Go On. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Do you remember the scene in Titanic when they fired the flare high above the sinking ship? It was to alert any other passing vessels of a ship in distress. We figured out many practical ways to take advantage of the concept of shooting flares high overhead. I thought we might begin with a brief history from a past edition of the Britannica, and I quote, "Throngs of people in holiday mood are usually delighted by the gaudy patterns set in darkened skies, by the explosion of multicolored fireworks. These same fireworks in a different setting may be an urgent signal of distress at sea, or more tragic still, the locator of a military target to be fired upon for the purpose of utter destruction. However, it seems that fireworks are more devised to amuse than to help to destroy. The origin of the art of making fireworks is not definitely known. It is usually ascribed to the Chinese. Their records show that such displays were produced by them many centuries before they appeared in Western nations. The Greeks made explosives of some description, to which the name of Greek fire has been given. And the Roman emperors sometimes amused the populace with colored lights and fire fountains. However, fireworks were not manufactured in European countries to any notable extent until after gunpowder came into use and the science of chemistry had developed. A pyrotechnic display is recorded as part of a 16th century pageant, and the Italians picked up the art and elaborated upon it during the 17th and 18th centuries. In the 19th century, the art of making fireworks came to its full stature, and many beautiful and elaborate effects were produced. There were pieces shot into the air to weave their gorgeous colored designs against the sky as a backdrop, and set pieces fastened to patterned fireworks. These latter fireworks, when lit, produce many patterns: waving flags, rushing trains and steamboats, mimic battles between comic characters, and portraits of noted personages." Unquote. We just love to gather to watch the awesome beauty of an aerial display of fireworks. Whether it's in a park, near water, or even in the comfort of our own backyard, we love to see the night skies lit up in a rainbow of colors. According to some statistics in a past issue of USA Today's Snapshots feature, the average public cost of a public fireworks display is $10,000. Of course, that figure was from some years past. The more elaborate the display, the more the cost will increase. But you don't always need something of that magnitude and scale to delight the kid in all of us. Something as innocent as the little red schoolhouse, or even a sparkler, can elicit oohs and ahs. Lovers and Other Strangers. From iTunes and CHFI.com. The Starland Vocal Band, Skyrockets in Flight, An Afternoon Delight, Dido's White Flag, and Marc Jordan's Rockets. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Are fireworks viewed the same way around the world? For a time, they were illegal in Australia, for example. Obviously, different countries have different views on the subject. The most important thing to remember about fireworks is the safety factor. If you're setting them off in your own backyard, make sure there is adult supervision. Nature provides some night fireworks of her own, fully as interesting as those produced by man. The alternating red and blue fire from Vessel's spars, known as St. Elmo's fire, is much in evidence in stormy weather. The aurora borealis, with its flaming, colored streamers of light and its crackling electric explosion, outdoes anything contrived by man to decorate the heavens. Unquote. Some thoughts in this past piece from Philip Adler's bridge column in a past issue of the Toronto Sun. What about the most spectacular display that we witness every year in summer? When a raging thunderstorm lights up the night skies. I'll never forget one of the loudest I've ever heard just a few years back. During a heat wave, I sometimes find that I have to do my daily bike ride after I get home late at night. About halfway home, I noticed spectacular heat lightning far to the north. Because it was so far away, there wasn't even the sound of thunder to accompany that light display. Shortly after I got back home and was just climbing into bed, the storm hit with a vengeance. I almost believed that the house was trembling in fear. The thunder was that loud. I got back up out of bed to watch, and so did the rest of my family. Christopher DeVink, in the book Only the Heart Knows How to Find Them, published by Penguin, helped his children to find the magic in one of these storms. His kids were afraid of the storm, but as it passed and they settled in for the rest of the night, he remembered other thunderstorms and memories, and I quote, "As we lay there, I thought about my grandmother and how much she disliked fireworks and thunderstorms. She always said they reminded her of what it was like in Belgium during World War II, when the night sky was illuminated with the flash of exploding bombs." Unquote. So you can understand why some who are old enough to remember might find the noise disconcerting. Nature's fireworks that aren't restricted to just holidays. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. David Foster, the love theme from St. Elmo's Fire. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Risa Mickenberg, some moving meditations from Taxi Driver Wisdom, published by Chronicle Books, wrote, on temporal pleasure. A taxi driver said, "I enjoy fireworks, but stars are nice." Unquote. I remember the night vividly. It was just after nightfall, and the Perseid meteor shower was about to peak. The skies were starlit and clear, but I lived a little too close to the harsh glare of city lights to really see anything. I pulled into my driveway after work, got out, walked around to the other door to retrieve my briefcase. I just happened to glance to the north over the top of the house when I saw a most spectacular shooting star. It had a tail that seemed to stretch forever behind it. And for the few brief seconds that it burned bright, it seemed to last for an eternity. But it was the silence that affected me. Maybe I was expecting the sound of fireworks, the squeal of a rocket flying high just before it explodes in a profusion of color. Anyone who has ever seen a meteor knows what I'm talking about. It's a feast for the eyes. But all you hear is a deafening silence. A few years back, my son saw his first shooting star. It was spectacular, too, and I was there to witness it with him. We were riding our bikes. It was early summer, around 6 in the evening. The sun was still up. Something caught our attention, and we both looked skyward at the same moment. A flaming object streaked by overhead. We thought it was fireworks, and of course we waited for the bang, when we didn't hear a sound except the wind in the trees. I told him we had seen something even more spectacular than a shooting star at night. We had both witnessed a shooting star that had made it through the atmosphere without completely burning up. A woman out walking her dog saw it too. She rushed over to us to share her excitement at seeing it. Somewhere to the far north of where I live, there is a fairly large meteorite on the ground, waiting silently to be discovered. This is CHFI.com. Chicago, Saturday in the Park and the 4th of July. Train with Drops of Jupiter and Kelly Rowland with Unity. And Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. With a telescope, we can look up and see the remains of the most spectacular fireworks of all. The remnants of a supernova explosion. And then there was the display at my home on Canada Day in '06. It was long after dark. There was another display at a community park close to where I live. We could hear the noise of the exploding rockets and see brief flashes of light. All the while, a single, beautiful firefly floated from one of our flower beds, across our lawn, and into the huge evergreen that adorns my neighbor's property, its soft light blinking. My wife and children were mesmerized by its appearance and how bold it seemed as it once flew up our walk where we were gathered to watch its silent display. I was more impressed by its delicate light show than the fireworks off in the distance. After the community display was over, a thunderstorm appeared in the distance. Its lightning streaked the sky like a spider's web. The crash of thunder was deafening at times as the rain poured down. The little creature we had been watching sought shelter in the boughs of the huge evergreen, its brief flickers like a solitary Christmas bulb left fizzling high in the branches. I know what display I'll always remember from that Canada Day. The one that was so quiet. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.